want to introduce the new Venom Wave Folder, introduced in version 2.11 of the Venom plugin. And first, I just kind of demonstrate the features. So let's just bring in some sine wave. Enable the trig. So we have a nice quiet sine wave, and we have three different controls for the wave folder. The first one is an amplifier, the preamp. It just amplifies once, as much as 10 times. And the wave folder, once it gets to 5 volts, it folds it down, and it gets to negative 5 volts, it folds it back up. And we've got the stages set, a total of 2 stages. So no folds as 1, second fold, and then doesn't fold anymore, but instead we have a soft tan-H clipping or saturation at 6 volts. And we can change the number of stages. Let's go to 3. So there's none, 1, 2, 3, and then clipping. Let's go to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can go to 5, and that's as far as amplification. Oh, amplifies up to 10, factor of 10. It's not able to fold anymore. We can go as high as 6, but that's not going to do anything. So that's the preamp. There's also, by default, it's at 1. You can go all the way down to 0, so no signal passes through. So if we keep that at 1, and we also have a stage amp, which means it amplifies for each folding stage. So we can increase. Notice this is it only goes down to 0.5, and it goes all the way up to 10, but it's exponential to make it easier to dial in this region here, for between 2 and 1 is the most interesting region. So totally different type of folding. It's amplifying for each, amplifies type. Let's say here about 1.7 for the first stage, folds, and then that multiplies that by 1.7 again, etc., etc. And then the last control is the bias, which adds an offset to the input before it does any amplification. And in fact, we can do the same thing if we add an offset to the VCO unit. Add 5. You can see it shifts the sine wave up and causes folding, or you can shift it down and causes folding up. But it's built in. We've got that built into the wave folder. And now the fun thing is when you start combining folding, the preamp folding, and then the per stage amplification, and then add some bias. If we distort the sine wave a little bit, this per stage amp gets a little bit more interesting. So that's all the features. Well, no, that's not quite all the features. Let me do one last thing. So if we add some CV, right? Let's bring this back to sine, and if we put CV, there's an attenuator for the CV input, so it doesn't do anything. So let's bring this. Let's turn the attenuation up. So now we can control the folding through CV. But notice if I go to negative, in fact, here, if we put amplification up here, it doesn't go negative. I mean, it goes down to 0, but it won't go below 0 amplification. So it's not inverting the wave. There is an option for each of these ports. You can you can make it bipolar mode. Now, as I go negative, let's bring this. So it's going positive or negative. And and then there's also, this is just slow modulation, so it doesn't need oversampling. You can, by default, it's enabled and it's going to be yellow, but for this slow, I have it disabled. That actually I should talk about, right, the one last thing, oversampling. Right now it's set to 8. Let's turn this off. No oversampling. There's no difference, right? But if we go to high frequencies, and that sounds awful. It's all aliasing. Turn on the oversampling. Times 2, it helps. Still, times 4, it's better. And then times 8, it's pretty good. If we really go extreme, the oversampling keeps it nice and clean, gets rid of all that aliasing. But typically, for most uses, 4 to 8 is probably all you need. And then, like I said, for the individual CV inputs, if you're not modulating at audio rates, you can disable the oversampling. So the LED is, if it's oversampled, it's yellow in the upper right corner, and you disable it and it's red. Enough about the features. Let's turn this down. And so let's go down to kind of a use. Because this can go to 0 volts, right? It can function as a VCA. So let's try using the wave folder as a VCA, but not, it's a normal VCA with wave folding. So if we bring this up, and let's turn this off. So we're taking this, we got a LFO triggering a ADSR envelope, which is then modulating the preamp and the stage amp, but they're just turned off. The stage amp is at 1, the preamp is at 0, so nothing's coming through. I bring in some of that envelope, and we got just a normal triggering of the sound, but no folding. But as we increase, you can see it starts to fold. And if let's slow this down. But we can also fold with the stage amp. And then if we bring in some offset, So that's just a normal, quote, normal VCA with folding. But it also can function as a ring modulator with folding. So instead of driving the wave folder with the envelope directly, let's use VCO instead. So let's listen to what that sounds like on its own. We have a VCO that's being driven by that same envelope, and now if we come back to our folder and then take, instead of the envelope output, we take it from the oscillator, and now we bring up the amplification of the pre-stage and also bring up the amplification of the stage amp. And I'm just doing different harmonics. So this is doing ring modulation and VCA and folding all at the same time. And let's listen to some reverb. Make it sound a little nicer. All right, so that's ring modulation and VCA. Let's do another little example. What do I have here? So here I'm gonna, in this little example, I have some formants through wave folding. Turn this down, turn that down a little bit. So I've got ring modulation going again, as well as I've got an LFO slowly modulating the preamp to bring the sound in and out. That's enough of that one. And the last little demo I have is to get a nice stereo drone. So if I just, let's bring in a little distorted sine. And again with the S curve, this is C2. And then I'm going to, for my folding, it's going to be polyphonic folding. And I want to make a kind of a interesting drone that constantly shifts. So I've got a poly offset with 6 uncorrelated volt per octave values that's going to 3 different LFOs, polyphonic LFOs, and each of these LFOs is tuned to different octaves and different frequencies. So we get a total of 18 completely different frequency LFOs, 6 per each LFO, and those are feeding into the 3 CV inputs for my wave folder, and I only have a monophonic input going into the wave folder. But once I activate this, you can see that I have, let's turn this down just a little bit. You can see that I 6 outputs, even though I've got monophonic input, 6 channels, and then that's being divided by my multi-split, dividing those 6 channels into 3 for the left channel in purple and 3 for the right channel in red. Let's turn this back up again. And then to make it sound a little bit more mellow, let's put some reverb on there. And I think that's just a delicious, slowly, just subtle, shifting drone. So there's a lot you can do with the wave folders. Just I didn't try to do anything particularly musical. Just wanted to demonstrate some of the features and just give us some ideas of what you might do with it. So have fun with it.